So across the country, we continue to see the radical left losing their minds in regards to the leaked opinion of the Supreme Court talking about Roe v. Wade. I want to talk a little bit about that, the implications as far as what they're doing in regards to the First Amendment, and how they continue to lose their mind. So as I said in the opening, the radical left continues to lose their mind in regards to the leak from the Supreme Court. It's scary to think that just one ruling has the potential to absolutely cause the left to lose their minds. And that's exactly what's happening. You see that they were, or maybe you've seen, if you've watched the news, looked at the news, they were protesting at churches. I do like what a friend of mine said, that you didn't see them protesting at churches in the South very much. You saw them protesting at churches in big cities, and that's probably by design. I think they know what would probably happen in the South. But we see these radical leftists, they're out here protesting at churches, the homes of the Supreme Court justices, trying to sway their opinion, their ruling, so to speak, and how they align on this. Now, there's obviously a risk that some of the Supreme Court justices could potentially overturn their statement, their belief. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's most likely going to happen is you're going to see the radical left push to get the Women's Health Protection Act pushed through Congress. Now, this Women's Health Protection Act was passed in the House last year after these pro-life laws were passed in many states like Texas and others. And it was brought up again this week. The Senate is expected to vote on the Women's Health Protection Act on Wednesday. It's interesting to see what the Senate is going to do. It obviously would codify Roe versus Wade into law. Now, I've said it before and I say it again. Ending Roe versus Wade does not end abortion in the United States. It simply makes it a states' right issue. But these people, they believe this is a constitutional right. They truly believe that the United States Constitution, in its verbiage, which I've read many times, saying that women have the right to an abortion. They want to claim that it's in the different amendments. They claim typically in the 14th Amendment talking about equal protection. There's nothing in the Constitution at all, anywhere in its words, that says anything about guaranteeing the right to an abortion. Nothing is there. It talks about the protection, the preservation of life, liberty, and property. It says that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, which if you read that at its very words indicates that abortion should be illegal because the baby that's in the womb has no ability to defend itself in due process of law. So when you're unable to defend yourself, you are guaranteed or granted their full protection of the United States government, and you would think our government would stand up for the unborn. But that's not the case. That is not the case. So these protesters, they're out here, they're protesting at the Capitol, they're protesting at the Supreme Court, churches, they're protesting at the Supreme Court justice houses, all over the right to kill children. Scary, isn't it? All because they want to take children's lives. Baby killers, let's call it what they are. It's the truth. They want to take children's lives. So the bill won't pass, this Protection of Women's Life Act, as I shared, or Women's Health Protection Act. It won't pass the Senate. They don't have the majority. It's purely symbolic and gives them something to try to campaign on. And the Democrats have already been campaigning. They've already been raising funds off of this. And the radical left has turned on their own. They're already out here protesting at Nancy Pelosi, demanding investigations into Supreme Court justices. I mean, what are we investigating? Are we investigating if they're actually going to rule according to the law? Or are we investigating if they're actually doing their job? Or are we simply sitting here to waste more taxpayer dollars on another useless Democratic investigation? That's more, seems more likely as to what truly is taking place here. All of that said, it's getting ridiculous. And then the radical left is losing their minds. But this protesting at the churches has really caught my attention. So a lot of people want to talk about what Joe Biden is going to do here. They want to force the Supreme Court to comply with their wishes. They want to force the Supreme Court to say that churches should not be fighting for this. They've argued that churches shouldn't have a say. I have to agree with an article over at the Daily Wire today that Joe Biden has made things worse. Article podcast, it was a headline that I saw, just to be correct, but it said Joe Biden has made things worse for Christians and churches, and that's true. So I want to read you the text of the First Amendment. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, are they saying that the killing of babies is their religion? I don't think that's the case. Obviously, we have laws that say murder is illegal. In all 50 states, if you kill someone, it's illegal, except in the case of an abortion. They want to argue that a child is not a child if it's not out of the womb. Yet we know science teaches us that even in the womb, the baby hears, the baby feels, the emotions and senses pain, all of those things, just like a person out of the womb. But we don't want to grant that child the exact same right. So we would rather sit here and protest out in churches in our communities across the country. But the problem is this. If they push the Supreme Court to force this into churches and say that you have to accept abortion, is that not a violation of the First Amendment? Is that not a direct violation of the constitutional amendment that says that the government shall pass no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof? Because you see, if the left has their way, they're going to force everyone into stupid educational processes like you have to be educated on an abortion before you can have a child. That's how the radical left thinks. And how ridiculous is that? We don't want to sit and talk about the 14th Amendment where, again, it says, no, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. We don't want to talk about anybody being protected by the law. We don't want to talk about anybody's life being protected here, any of these unborn children being protected. We just want to talk about the fact we want to kill them out of convenience. That is the mindset of the radical left. And they're willing to go to any extent to get this passed. They're willing to go to any extent to somehow put this into law. I firmly believe if they had a majority, a supermajority in Congress, they would be attempting to make this a constitutional amendment somehow. And I know that takes a lot more than just the majority vote, but I think they would be trying to push it through. I mean, if they had the power, that's how far they would go. We're willing to sit here and protest out in front of somebody's home out of convenience. We're willing to sit here and protest outside of our government buildings in Washington, D.C., and we're willing to say that this is a stripping women of their rights. But we don't want to talk about the rights of the unborn. We're sitting here willing to say that a woman deserves the right to health care. Nobody's denying a woman a right to health care. They're denying her the right to take someone's life, someone that does not have the ability to protect their own. So the problem I have is that, one, we're walking a fine line with the First Amendment. And I've shared it before and I share it again. It's going to get ugly for churches and Christians as this continues to progress. But what the radical left is currently in the process of doing, sitting here pushing, pressing, demanding Supreme Court justices overturn their opinions. They're demanding investigations to continue to bully Supreme Court justices into doing things their way. Mark my words, this is going to come to violence at some point. And not violence on behalf of conservatives. We know this. We know conservatives are notoriously not the ones out here committing these things. These are not these quote-unquote right-wing extremists out here protesting. These are the same people that were destroying federal buildings, killing people, and destroying property in Oregon, up in Wisconsin, in Chicago, you name it, in all of these liberal areas. These are the same ones responsible for smash and grab crime out in California. It's the people that have no desire, no respect for law at all. It's going to get ugly. This is only the beginning. And we better be ready in multiple fronts. We better be ready as Christians, but we better be ready as Americans and as conservatives, because we're getting ready to be in for the fight of our lives thanks to the radical left coming up to the elections later this year. We've seen the strength of conservatives still at the polls so far in the primaries. but it's going to be very interesting in the fall. A lot of people have predicted a red wave. We see a lot of information coming out from the economy. Things don't look good. Essentially, everything has been turned upside down in the last 2 years. Everything that was good is now bad. Everything that was going well is now going horribly. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But before we get there, we have to do our part, and we have to be prepared for what's to come. All material is copyright The Closet Conservative Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and share our podcast with your friends. You can find out more information about our show on any of our social media channels.